You just tell me when. Well, hello. Hi, everybody. We are going to get started here tonight. We're with Jacob Adamo, who is the author of Full Spectrum Success. That's right? I guess I said that right. And he's got some other books in the works right now. And so we're really excited to have him. I have used his trainings and the way that he teaches you to teach to the colors and teach specifically to the colors in my presentations. And we've taught that to our teams and things like that. So we're really excited that he's here. We're just going to let you go, Jacob, and then he's going to have some time for us to ask questions at the end. But we just want to hear what you have to share.
Okay. Well, I can definitely share about the colors. Most of the folks that you are dealing with have probably got at least a basic idea of the colors. Am I right about that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to kind of gear this toward a little bit more toward leadership. I think most of the people that are in your downline, that are in our downline, or that are interested in this type of thing, they're looking for ways to use this information and to look closer at leading and being a leader and using their color for leadership. So I had sketched out a lesson on leadership, and after this, I would like to take some questions, because I know you guys threw a few questions at me on Facebook that I would like to be able to answer as well. We'll talk a little bit more about the interactive personality differences when it comes to the home and other things. I'm actually doing I'm doing a talk in March before a group of church leaders, and we're going to be talking about how to use the colors and how that affects church leadership. So that's going to be a fun one too. But let's talk about leadership first, and then we'll kind of go into that when I finish this. I'll just open it up and let you guys kind of field some questions, throw some questions at me, and we'll go from there. So first thing we need to realize is when you're leading, whether it is, if you're in a family situation, it's not exactly a volunteer army. You can be a dictator if you want to, but we all know that the best leadership comes from example. And when people want to follow you because they like what they see, when you are true to yourself, that they're going to enjoy that, and they're going to follow you because they desire it instead of following you because they are forced to. You can, discipline a child and teach them exactly what your household rules are, and you can go all the way up through until the point where they're 18. I remember even being a child, not to throw my dad under the bus, but I remember hearing that exact statement, until you're 18, you're going to do it this way, and then you can do it however you want to once you're out of the house. Well, that's true, but there's still a lot of things that I follow that he taught. And it wasn't because he said I had to do them that way. It was because I watched him do them, and I understood them, and I appreciated them. And I liked what I saw, and I liked the results that I saw. So the first thing that we need to realize is that we are actually, we're in front of a volunteer army. And I say in front of because we're not behind. We don't lead from behind. We don't, order people and tell them what to do and tell them, okay, you're this color, so you go do this, and you're this color, you go do that. Our job is to actually unlock what their color is and unlock the best thing for them to do, but help them to come to the realization. Don't tell them what to do. Help them to realize what their goal is and what their purpose is, whether it be in a team or in a family or anything else. So once you understand that you have a volunteer army behind you, then you move forward. And this is very, very key. I like to say, bosses say go and do. Okay, the focus of this method is on obedience and submission. And there's a lot of parents out there that do the same thing now. And don't confuse this, because there does need to be obedience in the parental role, parental child role and relationship. But we have to be careful, because leaders say follow and repeat. So bosses say go and do. Leaders say follow and repeat. The focus of follow and repeat is on demonstration and duplication. And when we focus on these things, by us doing them, you're not giving anyone a command. And this is where it gets really hairy with the colors, because I think a lot of people try to learn the colors and they try to learn personality so that they can um, to put it bluntly, so that they can manipulate the situation around them to their benefit. And that's very dangerous. I always, in fact, in my new book that I'm writing right now, I teach that you need to harness your own color first. You need to focus on yourself first, because if you go out and start learning all the other colors, you find out, okay, I'm a red. I'm going to learn about blues, greens, and yellows, and I'm going to get in there and really figure out how these people tick and how to communicate with them so that I can get what I'm after. Well, all you're learning in that case is how to manipulate people. And you'll see a lot of the personality teachers out there come from a worldview where that's okay. That's fine. You're out to manipulate the situation to get the best that you can, the most that you can out of every person that you can, and then move on. And, for me, my study in the colors, it goes much deeper than that, because I want to know the individual, and I want to help that individual unlock the best that is within themselves. Because when we are all acting at our best, we reach our fullest potential together. And what we can do together is always going to be larger than what we can do by ourselves. Always. So moving forward in as far as leadership, there's two primary keys involved in leadership. And key number one is honesty. Okay? And when I say honesty, I mean with yourself first, and then with others that you're leading. You have to be honest about your faults. You have to be honest about your weaknesses, about your shortcomings. That's hard for a lot of us, especially any Reds listening. That struggle of opening up, because it's much easier to be strong all the time. But sometimes people need to see the honesty. They need to see your weaknesses. They need to see that you are struggling and you're working, because that validates the struggle for them. So celebrate the struggle, appreciate the struggle that they're in. Don't downplay it. And, it's easy for people to look perfect, but when we're honest, we're not perfect. And we've got plenty of garbage that we're dragging around with us. But be honest with yourself about who you are, and be honest about your strengths and weaknesses and your desires. This is important not only in leading, but also being led. And here's a key factor, if for those of you taking notes or writing anything down. If you are going to be a leader, you are also going to be led 100% of the time. If you're going to lead, you're also being led. So these things play into both, because if you are not good at being led, guess what? You're not going to be a good leader, because you don't know how to follow. And until you know how to follow, and you can accurately tell someone else how you're following in a path and how you're going on your way, why would they follow you? Why would they fall in line behind you if they're not with you on that? So make sure to put yourself first in that focus. Key number two is humility. It's only possible to lead or be led effectively if you can take your ego out of the equation. So pride, in my opinion, pride is the great destroyer of healthy leadership. Because as soon as you get to the point where you think you no longer need to be led, you will start to fail at your leadership. So always be humble enough to be led, and be looking for ways to be led. So those are your two keys for leadership. Primary keys are honesty and humility. So I have down in my notes here, because I want to talk to you guys about this. There are two parts to leadership: leading and being led, like we've already talked about. And only a true shade can be an effective, true leader. So whatever color you're in, the only way you're going to be the best, obviously, is to be the truest shade of that color. That's what you need to focus on. So how do we improve our shade? This is done by learning to harness our personality skill set in a more selfless manner. And I have talked to numerous people who are looking for ways to, to harness somebody or to, deal with somebody's troublesome color. And it always centers back when we break down the problems and we go down to it. It always centers back to helping that person understand how to be more selfless. Because the more that they focus on themselves, the more they get tripped up with that color. Because, you know, as a red, if I'm dominant in something and I want what I want, the more I'm focused on myself, I'm going to drive for that. That's how I'm geared. You know, if you're a green or and you're suffering with the pessimistic aspect of things, and you're fearful because you don't understand, you know, quite how it's all going to work out, and you're you know, overly focused on that, it's still for personal aspect that you're looking at, that you want everything comfortable for you, so you're focused on how to make it comfortable, and that's a danger. So we have to be very conscious about paying attention to the shade of our color and how we're responding to things. So let's talk a little bit about each color, and then I'll probably turn it over and get some questions from you guys. I don't have a lot besides this, but I wanted to lead with this because I think this is very important, and this is stuff that is kind of your stage 2 with the colors on where to implement and how to go forward. So let's talk about reds real quick. We know that reds are dominant. We know that their master key question is what? What do I get out of life? What does it take to make it work? I want to talk about their leadership keyword. Okay. A red's leadership keyword is respect. They are very fast decision makers. They're confident. They're stubborn sometimes. And I say we because I am red, we sometimes respond harshly if we're questioned. We tend to expect as much effort from others in a team setting as we're willing to put in. And that can cause problems sometimes, because sometimes we are, you know, 110% in, and somebody else is like, I'll meet you at 60%. We're like, well, what's up with that? Where's the other 60%? Come on. So they're drivers. They typically have laser focus and very little to no patience with excuses. Don't make an excuse to a red. Just don't. Tell them. I used to have a trainer when I was in sales. He used to say, don't give me the excuse. Just tell me the train and I'll understand. He's like, you know, you missed the train was late, whatever. He said, I just have a code word. Just tell me the train and I'll understand. Don't actually give me the excuse. I don't want to hear it. And I used to laugh at that, but then it dawned on me as a red, that's very true. Like in fact, I might actually create a code word for my kids. That way I can kind of replicate what he did, because it was relieving. You know, he'd kind of look at you and he'd be like, the train. He's like, all right, sit down. Let's get to work. That's just the way it is. So caution for reds: over dominance or assuming power or leverage where there is none. Okay. Now, why do I say where there is none? Because in a family situation, we have a certain gifted amount of time where we can be with our children, we can raise them, and we do have authority over them. And we, you know, in a way, we do have dominance over them. But that is in a nurture situation where you are trying to nurture them to be their own person, right? In a network marketing situation, they are already their own person. The only thing they might be looking to you for is guidance and leadership within that network marketing frame. But remember, it's a volunteer army. So if we assume authority or power or leverage there, it doesn't necessarily exist. We can tell the person exactly what they need to do, and they can tell us to take a hike the next day if they don't want to do it. So be careful when you are bringing ideas forth that you don't assume power or leverage. If you're a red, be careful of that. Don't blast other people's ideas out of impatience or, you know, in favor of submission to your will and your ideas. Don't blast them. Let them out. Let them have it out. And if anything, and this is something I can't stress enough when it comes to the colors and practicing this, ask questions. Ask questions and help to lead someone along a path. If you think they need to be more over here than over there, ask a question and see if they'll make the move themselves. Because you can force anyone to do anything, but only temporarily. You can never force it to be permanent. So if you want it to be permanent, it has to be their decision. It has to come from them. So by asking questions and leading along a path of wisdom and knowledge, you're going to get them there naturally, and then it's their decision to make it, which makes it their commitment to make it as well, which means you don't have to repeat. One of the trainings that I do with our team is I talk about influence versus informed customers. An influenced customer that you had, you tell them what they need in their life and that they need to be healthy and that they need to take these supplements and they need to use these oils and they need to do these things. And you apply these things and you influence them into making that change in their life. Guess what you're going to have to do next month? You're going to have to influence them again. And you're going to have to keep influencing them because it's your influence that's producing the change in their life. And I don't think you nor I have time to continually invest in those people and for us to grow them. You don't have time to grow other people. You have enough time to grow yourself. And that is very, very important because God put you on this earth to do a specific thing. So use the time that he gave you to grow yourself and to be that thing. Don't try to grow other people. That's not what you're put here to do. You are put here to be an example and to teach other people how to follow in that example, but make sure it's duplicable, right? So I got a little sidetracked there, but I'm passionate about this stuff, and that is being a true leader right there. So let's see. I don't have all my papers here, apparently. Okay. So let's look at blues. I remember most of the stuff, so I think we're pretty good. Apparently some of my papers got lost here. Actually, let's finish up with reds. There's a couple things that I do want to say before we go there. Reds have a very strong determination to see a task through. Okay, so that is their strength when it comes to something. You set a task in front of a red, they're going to muscle through it. They have the ability to put fear in its place and push forward. They don't know how it's going to work out. They don't need to. They don't need to know how. They just need to know what needs done, and they're going to push and get it done. They have really strong backs and really wide shoulders when they're in their true color. And I want you that are reds to hear that, because God gave you a strong back and wide shoulders for a reason. You can carry it, and you will be okay. And he will give you the strength that you need. So remember, wide shoulders, you've got them for a reason. When it comes to leading, be careful of placing your own pace expectations on others that you lead, because your pace is yours, not somebody else's pace. So be careful. When you apply your pace to somebody else, they can start to feel trampled, because you're going to run faster than most people if you're a red. Your pace of life is going to scare some people. They're going to look at you and go, there is no freaking way that I can keep up with that. And that's okay. They have to feel that from you, that it's okay that they can't keep that pace. So don't apply that to their shoulders, because their shoulders weren't meant for that. They weren't designed for that. So when it comes to being led, and this is a big one for reds because it's hard, make sure that in your haste and drive, you don't trample on the feelings of others or throw valuable advice away or relationships away in an effort to maintain your pace. Okay? You will find people that you outpace. You will find people like greens out there in your life that tell you to slow down. Does that mean you have to slow down? No, not necessarily. But it does mean that you need to communicate with that person and allow them to understand that it's your pace, not theirs, and that you're traveling this road and you're happy that they're on a different road. You know, that communication can go a long way. But that very same friend might check you at one point in time and help you avoid a pothole that you didn't see because you were just driven and bent and running. So it's important not to, ruin those relationships that might turn out to be saviors down the road. So let's talk about blues. We know that blues are influencers, and we know their master key question is why, right? So their leadership keyword is response. Okay, so red's leadership keyword was respect. Blue's leadership keyword is response. So for those of you that have leaders underneath you that are these colors, this is what you need to think when you talk to them. A blue wants response. They want active response. They want informative response from you. They're fast decision makers. They can be very impulsive. They look for excitement. They are the life of the party, let's be honest. They tend to interrupt. They can show some rude tendencies in conversation. And so it's just how their brain works. As soon as they find something, they know if they don't get it out of their mouth, they might lose it. So they got to throw it out there. Be patient with them. Understand that. That's how their brain works. That's how they were designed. Be okay with it. So they're expressive. They have tremendous energy, and it's typically only as harnessed as their attention. So if you really want their energy harnessed, you got to be able to harness a blue's attention span. Okay, you got to have them invested. So cautions for blue: tendency to avoid the less fun aspects of leadership, such as hearing somebody out, putting their own pursuits on pause to help somebody. These are things that blues struggle with, because in their world, especially if they're a thriving blue, if they're really running for something, running and gunning, it almost pains them to slow down, to listen to somebody else, to deal with stuff, because it's just no fun. That you are sucking the fun out of the moment, and I am driven and I am going. So don't slow me down. But as a leader, you've got to be able to slow down, hear the person out, and temper that drive. So some loses enough attention to those that they deem worthy. And I wish I didn't even have to go there, but I do, because I've seen it enough in not only my team but other teams. There are some people that try to recruit a certain class of people. And let's be honest, if you are a true leader and you have a true servant leader's heart, you're not looking for a specific niche market. You are not looking for a specific class of people. You are looking for those who are desiring help. Period. Done. I don't care if they look fancy. I don't care if they dress well. I don't care. It doesn't matter. If you are a servant-minded leader, you are looking to need help, and you're there to help them. Done deal. So enough about that. We'll move on. So blues strengths. They have energy and passion. They can bring enough charisma to a team to pull people out of their comfort zone and into the fun zone. Okay, blues are awesome at that. You know, let's pull you out of your comfort zone, but let's make dancing really fun. You don't dance? That's okay. Dance with me. We're going to have fun together. We're going to make this thing work. They are really good at that. They inspire, and hope comes really easy to good blue leaders. Like, they see the silver lining in every cloud. They really do. They'll take a look at it, and, you know, problems, oh, my finances, my this, my that, you can throw problems at them. And they're like, yeah, it's okay. It's all right. It's going to be good. Hey, next month is next month, right? This month was bad. Tomorrow starts a new month. No problem. Let's go. Let's make this month awesome. And that's great. That is a fantastic ability that they have. So if you're a blue listening to this, harness that, because you have the power to speak life like nobody else. Like, I mean, we can all speak life, but blues are gifted with that from birth. They have speak life built into their bones. They don't have to fight negativity hardly. It's, you know, you very rarely, you will see a blue sometimes deal with some stress and some depression. Most of the time, they just like slough it off. They're like, whatever, it's out. I'm done. I'm on. Going to the next. That's powerful. So learn how to use that. Learn how to inspire others with that. So in leading, be careful that you don't create a cool kid rift in your group. Okay, that goes right back to what I was saying. It's easy as a blue to identify passion, identify drive, identify value and decide, I'm going to stick with these people because they are passionate, they're valuable, they're sharp, they're funny, they're good looking, they're wealthy. They're, it doesn't matter what niche you put them in, but it's very, very important. Can you guys still see me? Okay, good. All right, my screen went blank, so as long as you can still hear me and still see me, then we're good. It's very, very important that that doesn't become an issue, that you make sure that you include everyone in your group. Make the fun more about the team and the team's accomplishments and less about your own elevation or your own niche. But if we're not looking to everyone to see who we can help, then we're not living up to our calling, because we were called not to divide, but to unite, to bring people together. Oh, being led as a blue. This one's going to be hard for those of you that are blue that are listening, but I need you to understand it and feel this. When being led, listen. Even if it's boring, listen. Understand that if somebody is breathing into you, it's a blessing. Even if it seemingly diminishes the fun at the moment, your passion is rare and amazing. Use it to help those around you enjoy whatever it is that the team is doing, but be willing to listen and be led, because somebody else is willing to invest in your life, and your fun that you're currently experiencing could be even better if you learn to listen to others and improve upon what you're doing. So that's our blues. Now we're going to switch roles. We're going to go to green. We know that green, in the disc one, greens are compliant. And I think it fits pretty well. And, that's like a dirty word right now for a lot of us. We don't like to use the word compliant, but we know that greens tend toward compliance as well. I mean, they're very, very, very sticklers to the rules. They want to know what the rules are. They want to know how exactly they can function. And if you can tell them how they can function and how they can work, then they're happy and they're okay. And that is their master key question, how. Their leadership keyword for a green is research. Okay, so for a red, we had respect. For a blue, we had response. For a green, their leadership keyword is research. They're slow decision makers. They're methodical. They're strategic. And I'm gonna tell you right now, in the network marketing industry, if you are a blue or a red or a yellow and you're trying to hype a sale on a green, you're trying to get them to understand the benefit of your product and your company, I'm going to tell you right now, excitement and hype can literally slow their decision-making process drastically, because a green will see that enthusiasm and that push as trying to convince them. And you don't convince a green. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm just going to relieve you of that. You don't have to convince a green. Don't even try, because you're not going to convince a green. They're going to convince themselves when they've seen enough research and data. So I hereby relieve you of needing to feel like you have to convince anybody. Don't worry about it. Put the data out there. Don't try to influence, just inform. To jump back to that story that I started telling earlier a little bit ago, influence versus inform. And I don't know, some of you may have heard this if you've heard me speak before, but this is a story that's near and dear to my heart, so I'll tell it really shortly. I was in door-to-door sales for a couple summers in college, and I went out and knocked on doors, and I did, first of all, driving down the street, I am astute. I am very smart. And I looked from side to side at the houses and the cars and their stuff and decided, which people probably could afford what I had and probably needed to hear from me. So I started off by pre-qualifying and prejudging people. Then I went and I knocked on doors, and I sat down with people, and instead of giving the 10 to 15 minute brief pitch that I had that was provided to us, and seeing if they were interested, I spent time. I invested time with these people to make sure that they understood that they needed my product a lot. And then I provided them the option and I sold them. And at the end of a couple of weeks, I had a 90% closing ratio. Okay. I was good. And I was looking forward to our meeting. And we came together and we sat down, and I was so proud of my 90% closing ratio because I was top of the class, man. I was doing great. And so my 90% closing ratio turned out that I had, I think I knocked on, probably 100 doors. So I had like 90 sales. And then this other guy who was very method, very systematic, who just did what he was told, went and knocked on doors, offered the product, gave a brief pitch, was looking for the people who were looking for the product, not looking to influence them, looking to inform them that this is out there if you'd like it. He got turned away a whole lot more than I did. He knocked on about 1,000 doors. He only had a 40% closing ratio. But we all know what the math looks like on that. He had 400 sales to my 90, and he had covered a ton of territory, invested way less time and emotion in the actual situation, because let's face it, you can influence anybody to do anything if you spend enough time on it. But did they really do it because they wanted it, or did they do it because you got them to do it? So then next month, you're asking them, how are you liking those oils? Oh, well, I haven't used any. Oh, wait, what? We're going to start all over? Oh, man. Okay. I get to influence you all over again to open your package and use the oils. Awesome. But we do it, and we don't mean to. But it's because we're not looking at it from their perspective. We're not looking at it to speak to them and their color. We're kind of looking at it from our perspective and saying, I know I can get them to realize this and believe this and make this jump. And I know I can get through to them. So we do. But that, for me, was a very eye-opening moment, because I looked at that and went, dang, I invested a lot of effort and influence where it didn't need to be, because I was looking for the wrong thing. I was looking from the basis that I understood something they didn't. I was smarter than them, and I could elevate them to my education level, to my point, and I could convince them and influence them to accept something that I had found to be true. In this case, that I had a product that they would appreciate. When the truth is, you can't. You could convince somebody to buy something. That's different than convincing them to make a life change. And I just got to notice that my internet connection is unstable. So I apologize for that. We're having some heavy winds. Can you guys still hear me? Okay. All right. I'm getting a thumbs up. So we're going to keep going. Okay. So we are on greens, and I got distracted there, but let's talk about greens and their cautions. Cautions with the green: analysis paralysis. You guys have all heard of it. We've talked about it a lot of times, and I have some very, very dear green friends. When it comes to analysis paralysis, here's the funny thing. It often starts with a green, but it is contagious. It will spread. It will spread in a family, and I have seen that happen. It will spread in a business, in your network marketing business. If you have analysis paralysis, you are going to duplicate that. It's going to happen, and you're going to start to see it. And as you come out of it and you think, okay, I'm clear of it, yes, let's move, you're going to have to help your people down the line come out of it. It literally will infect. Now, if you run into, a red down the line or a blue down the line, maybe not. They might not care. you might be okay. But most of our business is yellows. And that is a very, very dangerous thing when it comes to analysis paralysis and over-analyzing stuff as a green, because it will spread and you will cause a fear reaction to run like chain lightning right down your group or right through your family. So be careful if this is your family too. Pessimistic tendencies tend to steal momentum from others. You know, how many of you guys have had a phone call with somebody and you're talking to them on the phone and they're like, so how are you? And you're like, I'm great. I'm doing good, you know, moving forward. And you feel like you're having a good day. And then you say, so how are you doing? And they say, oh, well, let me tell you what's going on. And then, you know, you're in for about a 30 or 40 minute downer, right? And that's, you listen because you're their friend, but it's very difficult sometimes to pick ourselves up after that and move on and move forward. Now we're called to not let that negativity and that pessimism grab us and drag us down, but it's difficult. So I'm saying this because as leaders, you've got to be careful. If you are over analyzing or feeling negative about a decision, I urge you, keep it to yourself. Just button it up, zip it, and sit on it for a while and wait to see if somebody can answer that before you even ask that question. Don't go down that road. Just give it some time, okay? Because you have questions and there are answers. But sometimes those questions can actually breed fear because you are a hyper thinker. You are awesome. You have an amazing logical and analytical brain. So you can come up with scenarios that the average person has not thought of. And when you unleash that, it will scare the crap out of them. So be careful. Sometimes just give it a rest, give it some time, and you'll find the answer has already been dealt with. Or you'll find somebody steps in and says, you know what, I know how to fix this, and here it is. And you're sitting there going, I've been holding my breath for like 2 days. Whew. Thank you for solving that. That's okay. Better to hold your breath than to let it out and let that poison run through, because then when the solution comes and you present the solution, you have just diminished your credibility because you ran with fear first. So then you try to run with success and nobody believes you quite as quickly. So be careful, be very careful of that. So let's talk about strengths. A true green, and I'm talking true green, is a drama-killing machine, okay? If you are true green, you can be a drama-killing machine because they have an innate fact and fiction radar. Like, they can tell fact versus fiction, and they will go hunt down the facts that they need to kill the fiction. So helping others formulate systems or organizational patterns, help them accomplish their goals. You're good at that. Their ability to separate emotion from decision making can make them a very solid foundation to a group. So when leading as greens, don't let your love of structure and fact smother the creatives on your team. Understand that structure is good, fact is good. Some people like to feel, and some people are inspired by feeling. Understand that and accept it. Just as you go like geek nuts over, you know, some awesome factoid article that just got posted that gives you credibility on what you've been saying for months about this or that. You know, that's an awesome place to be, but don't get hung up on that. Don't get hung up on that. Understand that there are creatives on your team that when you try to spill that to them, they're just going to nod their head and smile and be like, okay, great. So, ice cream? Anybody? Let's go. Let's go talk. So find a way to build a system that includes other colors. Make sure that you build in positive reinforcement into your system that you're building. Make sure that, because it's easy to say, I'm right. You know, I knew I was right. Yep, you're right. I know. But if you don't positively reinforce those who are coming along and realizing what you're trying to say, then it feels like you're talking down to them, you know? So be careful of that. Understand that others will not always want your facts. This is a really hard one for Greens to understand, but it is super, super important for you to get. There are other people out there that will not necessarily want to hear your facts or your research. They don't care. Don't take it personally. They're not saying no to you. They're saying no to an aspect that they cannot click with. Their personality doesn't need that. They need to know you're excited about it. And if you're excited about it, they're excited about it. That sounds good to them. They don't need all the facts. They don't need all the figures, all the science. If anything, you're diminishing their ability to make a decision at that point because it's confusing. So be careful. So, okay, if need be, here's another one of my notes. If need be, allow them to fail and fall. And as a Green, allow them to fail and fall, even if you knew that they were going down a road that wasn't good and you gave them the facts and you gave them the information and they still fail and they fall. Keep the "I told you so" to yourself. It doesn't help. It really doesn't. Be there to help pick them up. They're gonna realize you were right and you had the facts all along. They're gonna get that. That happens. That's natural. So even though you want to, keep that to the vest and don't let that part out. Now let's talk about being led as a Green. This one's gonna sting a little bit, but that's what I'm here for. Allow your leaders to pull you out of that comfort zone from time to time. Okay? The Greens love to create an environment. And they do so very, very effectively. And they create an environment in which they can move with comfort. But that's not always the best thing for you, to move with comfort. Sometimes you need to be upset. Sometimes you need to be agitated. And that's what leadership is for. Leadership is to call you out of that comfort zone and make you do something that might not come naturally to you yet. But guess what? Speaking didn't come naturally to me at first. Talking to people did not come naturally to me at first. In fact, when I got up last year at convention and spoke for the first time, I was terrified. But I did it anyway because sometimes you are called to step out of your comfort zone and do something different. And be something different. So be okay with that. If your leader calls you out of that Green comfort and tells you to do something that's a little outside your comfort zone, it's okay. You will survive and you will be better off for having done it because you are broadening the borders of that box that exists that you're comfortable in. Like we all have that. We all have that comfortable zone. And when we can learn to let others, pull a border this way or pull a border that way, and we go, whew, I made it. I did that. Okay, this is bigger now. Now I can say I'm comfortable out to here. That's what leadership is for, is to pull people out. So be okay with that. Let your leaders pull you out of that comfort zone and let them hone you and give you better skills in different areas that you might not have had them naturally. And just because you weren't given a skill naturally, I say this to Greens, just because you weren't given a skill naturally does not mean that you do not know how to use it and that you cannot use that skill. You can, and you can learn that skill. Just because you weren't born with it, just because it doesn't come naturally, doesn't mean you can't use it. So be okay with learning and having somebody train you in a new way, because it's only going to expand the borders of your territory, of what you can do. So offer your skill set and your knowledge as a Green from humility and a genuine desire to see the situation made better, regardless of credit. Don't worry about credit. Credit comes from value. If I have learned anything in my life, it's that credit comes from value. When you offer value, don't worry about the credit. It will come back if it's due, if you've done enough to offer value. So don't worry about that. Offer value. have a genuine desire to see the situation made better. If there's a system that you see that you can tweak, that you can improve upon, by all means, get in there and offer that leader or sideline, that person, whoever they may be, offer them that value that you can add. The credit will come back. Don't even worry about that. So let's get to yellow. And I can see I'm taking up most of the time here for you guys, but hopefully you're finding value in what I'm saying. So yellows are your steady people. Their master key question is who. Usually when they make a decision, it is based on that question. That who is very important to them. Who can they help with what you're offering them? Who can they reach with it? That's why you will find a lot of people in Young Living that are yellows. There are a lot of yellows there because they find value in helping people. So their leadership keyword is relationship. So you've got reds. Reds are respect. Blues are response. Greens are research. And yellows are relationship. So yellows are kind of slow decision makers sometimes. They're peacemakers and team players. They don't easily get into conflict. Usually they would like to see a conflict resolved peacefully. Because of their desire for strong relationships, their focus is almost always on keeping a happy team, making sure that people are happy. They find strength in numbers and unity of focus, which is why when you have a team that starts to split, your yellows will immediately gravitate. They'll get very, very upset, but they'll start to gravitate to two sides automatically because they're looking for unity of focus. So whoever they can find to unify with on this belief, they're going to go that way. They're not quite like a red who's perfectly willing to stand completely by themselves and be like, I don't care who stands over here. This is where I'm at. I'm done. This is my stance. You pick your own stance. Yellows they want unity. So they'll fluctuate based on that. So cautions as a yellow leader. And again, this may sting a little bit, but I want you to hear it for the truth that's here. Manipulation can be present to try to gain relational control of stronger or more left brain members that you have. So a lot of yellows, I've found in my team and other teams that I've counseled and talked with, manipulation is a big thing for them. And it's honestly because they view themselves in a somewhat lesser role. They view themselves to be weaker. So rather than step up to what they know that they can do deep down inside, they use manipulation to get their way. And that's dangerous. Because yellows are all about the relationship. But because they have that relationship connection, there is the ability to abuse it. So I urge you to be very, very careful. If you're a yellow leader, be very careful that you're not using the relationship that you've built with the person to get your way. Because once that manipulation happens, you're going to burn that credibility that you worked so hard to get with them. And that can be a very bad thing. So don't appeal to others from a position of weakness. If you're a yellow, I'm going to tell you something right now. You are not weak. You have amazing strength of character. You have the ability to feel what others feel and to love them when a lot of others would reject them. That is a blessing. That's a gift. Don't use it to manipulate. Use it to assist, use it to lift up people. So your strengths, you bring heart to the team. Yellows never tire of trying to bring out the best in those around them when they're in their true color, when they're in their true shade. They never tire of bringing out the best around them, of those around them. They thrive on being able to help. They look for situations to bring their support to. So yellows as leaders, Don't be afraid of losing a relationship simply by presenting a differing opinion or holding someone to their word. This is another thing that I see with a lot of yellows. They're afraid of holding somebody to their word in their business. Somebody says they're going to do something, and like, you don't beat them over the head if they don't get it done. But at the same time, we are all people of our word, are we not? You know, when we go and we make a pledge, that means something. And you're only as good as your word. We've all heard it said numerous times. So don't be afraid of holding somebody to their word because you feel like there's going to be a loss in the relationship. If that truly is going to happen, there wasn't a relationship to begin with. I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. Because if they say something and you say, I want to hold you to that, and they're not willing to be held to it, they shouldn't have said that. But that doesn't have any bearing on you in that relationship. So understand that. Understand that you have the strength to hold someone to their relationship or to present a different opinion that might not be popular with the other person. If they disagree, they don't dislike you necessarily. They dislike your opinion and what it's doing to them inside, what it's making them think about. Be okay with that. Be totally okay with that because it has no bearing on you. The only thing you should be worried about is whether you spoke truth and life to that person. That's it. Above and beyond that, it's not your job anymore. Once you speak truth and life, let it go. Let him do the work. Just speak truth, speak life. Don't take the responsibility on yourself. So the other thing about leading as a yellow, love people enough to let them fail. And then love them and bring them back into the fold once they realize they did. A lot of times yellows like to prevent somebody from taking that tumble and from, busting their nose when they fall down. Anybody who's had kids knows that there's a certain amount of protection you can provide for your kids, and then there's a certain amount of tumbles that you've got to let them take so that they'll realize that when you said don't do that, don't sit on that stool right that way because you might fall off. Right? You could say it 6 times and they still do it. And there's that one time when you're just like, I'm going to hold off for a second. And then they slip and they fall and you pick them back up and you love on them. But at that point in time, they realized, oh, that's why. That's why I wasn't supposed to sit on the stool that way. Love them enough to let them fail. And then love them back in and make sure that you're ready to embrace them because that is difficult for yellows sometimes. Once somebody burns you, and doesn't listen and doesn't, use your wise advice, it's difficult to love them back in once they've learned the lesson. Make sure that you're just as loving in the lesson as you are in the aftermath of the lesson. So the other thing I would say for leadership with yellows, get conflict over quickly and peacefully. Don't let it fester. Don't let it hang out there. If there's a problem with upline, downline, sideline, anything, yellows have a tendency to just let it go because they don't like the conflict. But I can promise you, if you just let it go, it is probably only going to get worse. Because if a yellow is seeing a problem, they're either seeing themselves getting stepped on or somebody else getting stepped on. Usually it always involves a relational conflict. And if there's a relational conflict, you are so much better off getting that relational conflict solved as soon as possible. Don't let it go. It might be uncomfortable, but I promise you there is peace on the other side of war. And sometimes that's the only peace you're going to have is on the other side of the war. So get it done. Go ahead and don't assume it's going to be war, but go ahead and get it solved so that you can move on. So being led as a yellow, a yellow has a tendency to sometimes wait to be told what to do, primarily because they don't want to overstep their bounds, but it can also stem a little bit, here comes the sting, a little bit from laziness because there are other colors that are more proactive, that are doing more. And so, yellows can have that tendency of like, oh, I'm just going to sit here and everybody's going to tell me what to do and then I'm going to be successful. That's not necessarily true because what they're doing If they're being true to their color, what they're doing is for them. That's not for you. You have to do what is for you to do. You have to be true to your color. So don't wait to be told what to do. Look for active ways to improve yourself. If there's been conflict or hurt feelings, don't bottle it up. Get it out. Basically, be proactive. Be proactive. It's your life. Don't let somebody else tell you how to run your life, how to live your life, how to feel. You go out and do what you are called to do. So ultimately, I guess you could sum it all up and say leadership has less to do with your interests and more to do with your interaction with those on your team and those in your life and those around you. So that kind of concludes what I had on leadership. I hope you guys got some good content from that, and I'd love to answer some questions and talk through some things with you if you'd like to.
Thank you. I really liked what you had to say on the informing versus influencing. That's huge. It's huge for my team. It's huge for, I think it answers a lot of questions for leaders that are struggling every month, you know, where they get people signed up and then they struggle to keep people engaged. And so I already have a list of people and be like, you need to listen to this because it really answers it.
I'm very glad. That was something that actually, I say that was an eye-opening moment for me when it happened. But the truth is, I didn't see the truth of that moment until last year when my wife and I are trying to build. And we are still building, but we realized that we had done so much influencing that we were working our tails off trying to keep our level of OGV up and our level of growth and our percentages and everything. And we're both reds. She's a red green. I'm a red blue. So we're both very driven people. And when we realized that, we're running our tails off trying to do this. And that's when it hit me. When I look back at that lesson that I learned 12 years before, it dawned on me, that's the power of it. It's influence versus informed. Mm-hmm. And the entire focus is different. Influence is my will on you. Informed is your will for you. Mm-hmm. That's totally different. When a person makes a decision out of that place, then it's going to stick.
Well, it's that idea of lifestyle change with Young Living. If they're in to make the lifestyle change, you're not going to have to convince them every month to order the products or to use the products. They're going to go out and do the research and educate themselves and look through the resources you've provided to them, and they're going to make the change. And you're not going to have to be there. You can be a guiding hand, but you're not going to be shoving them every month or trying to drag them out. And I think that's great.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it's the same way on the business side. They have to know. They have to jump in on their own. You give them some action steps, but it's up to them to make that choice and to actually step out and do it.
Yeah. Well, we have people on our team that have been, kind of latent for a couple of years, even, that are just finally at the point where they have now made the decision. They have now see the value. Mm-hmm. And our team, our team name is Team Natural. And one thing that I have tried to stay very true to is the idea of natural growth, because I think natural growth, while it may be slower than some, it's truer than others as well. And so if I can help somebody make a decision for better health, that's step one. And if we don't get to step two until, they've stumbled through signing 12 of their family up, and all of a sudden they go, I got to check. What's this for? That's fine. That's okay. I'm there to serve them in the area that they need to be served in their life at the moment. Yeah. Nothing more. I always mention that there's more, but unless there's an appetite for it, then you're influencing. Mm-hmm. So always mention it, because, that's part of informing. Mm-hmm. If you don't inform the person that there may be more, then they can't make a decision to go and get more. So make sure you are informing, but make sure that you stop there and don't waste your time trying to influence.
Yes.
That's really good. Okay, one of the things that I saw that I got really excited about was on the greens. You know, I live with the green. She's actually sitting right beside me, but does not want to be on camera.
Surprise, surprise, Carmen.
Yes. So, greens need to have their borders stretched. This is so awesome because oregano, you know, oregano is applied to the reticular activating system, which is at the back of the head here. And that is kind of our filter for borders, for boundaries, for what we think we can and can't do. So it's an amazing oil for greens who are struggling to not want to be pulled outside of their comfort zones. And oregano is one of Carmen's favorite oils.
It also happens to deal with fear of completion and vulnerability.
There you go. I think I could use some oregano every now and then too.
Oh, yes. Well, it is for all of us. But if they're in particular, if that is a weakness where they struggle, that is a huge key oil for them. And then the other one for reds, oh my gosh, acceptance. I mean, that was just so clear. You know, when you said they give 110%, expects everybody else to do the same, and questions why it's not happening.
It burns a little bit, doesn't it?
Oh my gosh, that Carmen is over here looking at me with the, you know, with the eyes at the side.
There's I'll send this over to you if you don't already have it, but there's a reference chart that I ran across recently that has the different components in the oils. And it was very interesting to see how they break down by color into it. It's interesting. It's for later. It's for a future thing, but I'll whet your appetite with that.
Snap a picture and send it to me if you don't mind. I would love to see that.
I will. I'll send it to you. It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
So what questions can I answer or discuss at least? I mean, I might not have the answer totally ready, but I'd be happy to discuss some things and get some questions answered and discussed on here if you guys want to, or if you have the time.
Yeah, I think we have a few minutes. If nobody else has a question, I have one. Okay, so on the yellows, love them enough to let them fail, then love them enough to let them back in.
Yes.
What does that look like?
From a biblical standpoint, which is, I have to admit, it's where a lot of my analogies come from. So hopefully that will resonate with the people that I'm talking to. That would be the father of the prodigal son. That's the first thing that comes to mind is, you know, loving the individual enough to let them make a bad decision, knowing it's a bad decision, not knowing exactly the outcome of what's going to happen, but you love them enough to let them, because otherwise you're carrying the burden of their life. If you are stopping them from making bad decisions, and they're adults and they are responsible for themselves. Now, this is not, you know, your kids that I'm talking about necessarily, but it can apply as well. But mostly what I'm talking about right now is, you know, if they're adults and they're responsible for their own decisions, you stopping them from making a bad choice is literally you carrying them through life. Now, I'm not saying that every single time we should just let the person fall on their face. You give them wise counsel, obviously. But if they are bent on going down a road, you have to be strong enough to let them go down that road to potential failure or potential success, whichever it turns out to be. And then you've got to love them after that, regardless of the result.
Yeah.
So you cannot make your relationship with them dependent upon them doing the right thing in your eyes. That's difficult, but that's truth. Because if we had to make the right decision every time based on our relationship with God, we'd all fail. So he practices that, and I definitely see that in, the father of the prodigal son, because he left and he lived his, lifestyle that he wanted, and he ruined himself, and then he came back humbly. Now that's the thing, he came back humbly and repentant and, off wanting forgiveness and wanting another chance. But it says his father embraced him, ran out and embraced him. That's the love that a yellow needs to show after the fact. That actually, all of us, forget yellow, all of us need to be willing to be that person. But it's particularly hard sometimes for yellows, because being very steady, they don't understand, kind of like greens in certain aspects. They don't understand why people don't make the right choice all the time, because it's obvious, right? This is the right thing to do for those that love you, and for yourself, you should do this, but they don't always do the right thing. So that's where love comes in. It's tough.
Go ahead.
Tough love lets go and embraces.
We have another verse that you can, or Bible story that you can incorporate into your, repertoire of stories for the
sure.
Mom was reading to me, and I don't remember where it was. It's ridiculous. I'm a green, but I struggle with the reference part. But I remember the story. That's my blue. Anyways, it was Paul, and he's on this ship with these idiots, and they get shipwrecked, and no, they're not shipwrecked. There's a storm, and they say, "Oh, well, no, we'll fix it. We'll throw all the rigging for the ship overboard." And they throw the rigging overboard, and Paul's like, "Don't do that. Don't do that. It's a bad idea." And they do it anyways, and he's still nice to them. And so she read me that, and I was like, yeah.
That would be hard.
I want to say that's Acts 29. It's somewhere right in there. Acts 27, Acts 29, somewhere right in there. But yeah,
that would be hard though. When you watch somebody about to do something that you know is going to turn out bad, and they do it anyway. It's tough not to say, "See, I told you so." But part of being your true color is understanding the limitations or struggles, even if they're not yours. Understanding the limitations and struggles that someone else may face, and being able to give grace and mercy where it is required. And that's tough. And I'll tell you what, I have definitely seen a huge amount of growth in that for my wife and I doing network marketing, because you are involved with so many people, and it's easy to look at your downline and you're educating and instructing them, and then they know what to do, they know what they're supposed to do, and they don't do it, and you're like, ugh. But at the same time, I could influence them to do it, but then I'm nagging them, and they're only doing it because they're afraid of what I'm going to say or what I'm going to do. Let's look at that from a parenting aspect. We do that to our kids. The minute they're outside of our influence, they're going to do whatever they dang well please, instead of doing what they should do, because they were taught to do that. They were shown an example of that, and it followed through. So it really truly does go back to influence versus inform.
Because I know we mentioned we were talking about kids and having kids, and I have a green red in my house who is just gonna be the death of me, and I love her so much. But she digs her heels in on things, and her paralysis with decisions. I mean, we went to a smoothie place today, and we literally had to order without her. and wait for her and go back and order for her once she had decided. And it was like meltdown city. She's almost 7 and I keep thinking she's going to outgrow it. But how do we help, those that we do have influence over? How do we help guide them into their true shade? And, children, leaders on our team, everything. How do we do that?
Okay. That's a big one to tackle. Yeah, I have 5 minutes to tackle something that I'm actually writing. I'm writing
it's the idea of selflessness.
It is.
And even just your little blurb on that, I used that at soccer practice last night when she was melting down because she wanted to be at home. And I was like, listen, you want to be on the team and the team needs you. Right now, it's not about what you want. It's about being a part of the team. So I used it.
Good. I think that is the absolute truth. Like it does not matter what color the person is. The more selfless you can help them become, the better. When it comes to kids, I've had a lot of people get very confused because they gave their kids the colors test and, they came out, I think I've mentioned before, I gave my kids the colors test and almost all of them came out yellow. And I was like, whoa, what happened there? Well, as they get older, I start to see them step out. The reason they come out yellow is because I'm a red dad. When I say do something, they say, yes, sir. They get it done. And that obedience is so necessary and it's so good and so healthy for them to learn. Because if my child, and I've had parents that try to explain everything to a kid, and they allow the child to ask why all the time. Why do you say that? Why do you say that? And I think there is a place and a time for that, but it's after they've learned to obey. Because if my child walks out in the middle of the road and I say, get back here, and they say, well, why? And they get hit by a truck.
It's too late.
That's my fault as a parent for not establishing obedience. Now, when they come running back to me and they say, why did I have to do that? That's the perfect opportunity, post-obedience, to explain the reasoning behind it,
Which is this discussion I have with my blue son quite often. You obey her. Then we talk about why. I get him because I'm a blue. I understand it.
Yep. Comes through loud and clear.
The red-green or the green-red. She's foreign to me.
I have a green-red son. So I can totally feel you there. And he's coming up 12 years old next month. And there are some challenging times where we have discussions, and he can kind of go on the emo side of things and, suck it all up inwardly and be the martyr and, do what needs to be done, but there's no joy in it left and all of that. So in his case, I try and turn it around and put his focus on someone else. And it sounds so simple, but it really is, it's hard to do and it's hard to implement. But the moment that he looks at it from a duty aspect that he has to do this to a servant aspect where he is given the ability to serve, that changes everything. And that's very, very important for someone with that much left brain going on, because they are sizing up the situation, the strengths, the weaknesses, the deserving of the individual. That's a huge one. A left brain, like red-green type person, they are always sizing up whether someone is deserving or not of their time or of their attention. And when you can shift that from deserving to what you have to give, what you have to bless, it is difficult for them to pull themselves out, but I think it's so important because they learn to operate outside of that natural barrier that they have. Reds and greens can very, very easily become extremely selfish people. And that's just a fact. And I am a red, and I can say that without even hesitation, because it's very easy to size everyone up and every situation up as to what you can get out of it, how you can better yourself with it. And when you can pull yourself outside of that, and when you look at a blue, they can go the same way, but it's all about them, but it's all about fun. It's not about goals necessarily. It's all about them enjoying the moment. But if they can pull themselves out enough to help others enjoy the moment as much as they do, that's true fulfillment. That's not empty fulfillment. That's not something where you're gonna have this sugar rush because you just got what you wanted. You just filled yourself up and you're done. That's true meat right there. That's true fulfillment, that you're going to be able to go on longer than just that sugar rush. You're not going to have that spike and crash. When you can learn to serve as effectively and as thankfully as you do to yourself, then it opens up tons of possibilities. So I feel your pain on the green thing. It's tough. It is really tough.
Green husband too, green red husband too, and we're so maybe I just pass her off to him. You guys understand each other. I'm a blue red, so I get the red aspect of it. It's that green, that lack of being able to make a decision. It's like just doesn't matter at this point.
Yep.
It's a smoothie. It's not a big
deal. And you push them too hard to make a decision, and then they retreat even further into the melancholy. And I know.
And she closes off. Oh man, I don't get that. Like, I don't understand that.
No, me being a red-blue and my wife being a red-green, when there's a fight, it's kind of funny what happens because, we start with the little, back and forth, and here we go. And then all of a sudden, at some point, I'm analyzing her, and I'm analyzing her arguments, and I'm answering her arguments, and I'm good at that. I'm real good at that. Well, then all of a sudden, I run smack dab into a brick wall. Bam! And it's at that point that I realize, oops, I stepped all over this one. And at that point, I'm done. Like, now I got to back off, and now we got to play this whole thing differently but it drives me nuts because I just want to break her out of her shell, tear that wall down, break it. Let's talk. You can't do this to me. You can't give me the silent treatment. I don't do well with the silent treatment. Come on, let's get this. Let's pour these issues out and get them resolved. But if you push too hard, then there's a problem. With her personality, I realize now it's better if I keep my passion in check a little bit, especially the hurt side of my passion. And if I explain to her how there's your green word, how I heard it or how it affected me, then a lot of times she goes, oh, well, that's not what I was going for. Mm-hmm. Okay. Awesome. Let's back this train up and let's try this again and see if we can fix it. So, and when it comes with green, with kids, I have literally had to hold my line sometimes with him to get him to make a decision. And, you don't want to make it a traumatic experience, but sometimes especially when they're children, when they're adults, you have no right to pull them out of their comfort shell. That's not your job anymore. That's God's. You can explain the difference, where they need to be, but it's not your job to make them move. But when they are children, your job is to fashion them. So in my book, and I might catch a little buff off of this, but in my book, it's my job to fashion him, and I know his strengths, but I'm also not going to let him rest in his weaknesses. Mm-hmm. So if there's a lack of decision making, I'm going to make more decisions for him to face, because that's practice, right? And you do that with those that you love. You make them practice because you don't want them to fall short. You don't want them to have a handicap. If you had a child who had a learning disability, you wouldn't just automatically write them off and say they're no good. You know that they're created for a reason. Your job is to make them as effective as they can be. Mm-hmm. So it's no different with the colors and with the personalities. Your job is to make them as effective as they can be with what they were given, with what they were created with. So.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I know we kept you longer, and I appreciate you so much giving us your time. This is awesome. I can't wait to share this with my team and my husband. and my kids. I'm gonna save this one. She's only 7 now, but she can watch it in a few years. She'll totally get it. But,
there you go. Keep working on her. She'll be fine.
Pray you guys don't blow away up there in Wyoming.
Thank you. It's actually calmed down now that I look outside. It looks fairly calm. So I've really enjoyed the discourse and the talking with you guys, and I hope that I was able to deliver some good quality for you guys.
Definitely, always. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.